Hello everyone, and welcome back to my top 5 weapon series for Monster Hunter World: Iceborne. Today we're covering the most popular weapon in Monster Hunter, the Longsword. Featuring some crazy flashy anime protagonist combos, the Longsword has always been one of the most successful and most popular weapons in Monster Hunter. So, without further ado, number 5, the Wyvern Blade Luna. This Longsword is a great pick because of its massive 957 attack, 10% natural affinity, and 420 poison element, making this a great pick against literally every monster. The fact that this can't hit purple sharpness is easily compensated for by the massive damage you'll be putting out with it. It even has a slot. Next on the list is the Alatreon or Alatreon Longsword, Dark Claw Demise. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Alatreon Longsword because of my time with it in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. With 924 raw attack, Alatreon's signature huge bar of purple sharpness, 660 dragon, which is great, plus 2 level 2 slots, this weapon is fantastic. Plus, it's one of the coolest and edgiest looking longswords in the game, and when you're using a weapon that's as flashy as the longsword, that's always a huge bonus. Number 3 may surprise some. It's the Azure Star Dragon Dance, the USJ event weapon. With 891 raw attack, natural purple that can be extended with handicraft, and a whopping 30% affinity. This weapon is absolutely top class. 240 water element and 2 level 4 slots, which are much coveted in the late game, round out the package. This longsword has a beautiful, elegant aesthetic. It really lets you flow like water around the monsters, and you'll crit on almost every attack if you build right. It's pretty easy to craft too, because I mean, it comes from event quests. Can't get much easier than that. Number 2 on my list is the Black Fatalis Greatsword, the Fatalis Zaggespanon, with a jaw-dropping insanely high raw of 1,155, plus natural purple sharpness, 150 dragon, high elder seal, and 2 level 4 slots. This thing is the absolute king of damage dealing. However, that negative 30% affinity is pretty crippling, and because the longsword needs a lot of skills, namely focus and power prolonger, to be effective, I just can't stand dedicating that much of my build to repairing the affinity on this weapon so that it's playable. So yes, it is the highest damage weapon, but it is not my favorite. That honor goes to the Longsword, the Lightbreak Edge. 990 attack, which is still extremely good, even relative to its peers. Natural purple sharpness, just like the Fatalis Longsword, and a much more comfortable 0% affinity, plus 270 blast element, which is extremely relevant in a lot of fights, much more so than the Fatalis weapon's dragon element, as well as level 4 slot and a level 3 slot. This is a much more comfortable weapon to use. With the appropriate skills like Razor Sharp or True Razor Sharp, the sharpness isn't really a huge problem. In my mind, the blast element is so much better than the dragon element that it makes up the damage difference between the two weapons, and 30% higher affinity is too tough to pass up. So this is my absolute favorite longsword in Iceborne for comfort sets, although if you're trying to speedrun a monster, you'd still want to use the Fatalis one. As usual, I have my 2 honorable mentions. My first one goes to the Viper Tobi-Kadachi Longsword, the Crimson Viperfang 2. It's rarity 10, so it's very easy to augment and lasts you well into the late game because of that. It can reach purple sharpness with enough levels of handicraft, has 15% base affinity, and exclusive access to non-awakened paralysis. You heard that right, this is the only longsword that has paralysis without needing free element. 2 level 1 slots round out the package, making this a great longsword to craft in the early game and carry you through mid to late game. I had to think really hard about my next honorable mention because there are a lot of good choices for longsword. The pool is pretty deep. I ended up going with the Nargacuga Longsword, the Deepest Night. 792 attack is a little low, but with the non-elemental boost it becomes much more competitive. 20% affinity is great and is I think the second highest out of any longsword after the Azure Star. And the big selling point for me is natural purple, and it's really easy to craft. I wouldn't recommend using non-elemental boost on a longsword because there's a lot of choices that are really strong with status or element on them, but if you do want to do it, this is probably your best bet. So that's all for my top 5 longswords for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. As always, let me know what your favorite longswords are, or your least favorite in the comments below. Thanks for watching!